Boris Johnson has faced criticism for failing to implement further COVID restrictions, despite warnings from health leaders that many parts of the NHS are now in a state of crisis.
Yeah, meanwhile, a petition calling for the Prime Minister to intervene over the knighthood given to Tony Blair has more than 530,000 signatures. Anti-war campaigners say the knighthood is a kick in the teeth for the people of Iraq. Well, let's talk about all of these issues with the current Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, who joins us now. Very good morning to you and Happy New Year.
Good morning and Happy New Year to all of you and your viewers.
Thank you very much indeed. So this is a bit of a thorny political problem for you, isn't it? The knighthood given to the former Labour leader, Tony Blair. What do you make of the fact that more than 500,000 people want him not just not to have it, but to be stripped of it now he's been given it?
Well, look, I don't think it's a thorny issue for me at all. I think Tony Blair deserves the honour. He won 3 elections. He was a very successful Prime Minister. I haven't got time this morning to list all of his many achievements, which I think vastly improved our country, you know, whether that's minimum wage, sure start for young families. But the one I would pick out in particular is the work he did in Northern Ireland and the peace process and the huge change that has made. I worked for myself in Northern Ireland for 6 years with the police service over there, and I saw for myself the profound impact it had on peace, on both communities in Northern Ireland. So I don't think it's thorny at all. I think he deserves the honour. Obviously, I respect the fact that people have different views.
Yeah, but not just different views, Sir Keir. The fact of the matter is the Iraq war is a huge thorn in the side, not just of Tony Blair, but of the Labour Party. I mean, many people blame the catastrophe over the Iraq war for the fact that Labour can't get anywhere near power right now. The Shilcott inquiry said the judgments about the severity of the threat posed by Iraq's weapons of mass destruction was presented with a certainty that was not justified. The planning and preparations for Iraq after Saddam Hussein were wholly inadequate. I mean, worse than that, you know, there are families of those who died fighting who are furious about this honour for Sir Tony Blair and, of course, the cost in lives to the people of Iraq.
Which some reports have at 600,000 civilians.
Yeah, look, I understand there are strong views on the Iraq war. There were back in at the time, there still are. But that doesn't detract from the fact that Tony Blair was a very successful Prime Minister of this country, made huge differences to the lives of millions of people in this country, won 3 elections, and therefore I think he deserves the honour. I respect the view of those that think differently, but I think this is straightforward as far as I'm concerned.
Just on the subject of titles, Prince Andrew is much in the news at the moment, as you know. It was reported over the weekend that a lot of veterans are, a lot of serving people as well, are uncomfortable with the fact that they have to toast the Duke of York's good health. He still holds a number of military titles. Should he continue to hold those military titles?
Well, at the moment, obviously, there are ongoing legal proceedings. There are rulings that are being made and about to be made in the ongoing civil proceedings. I'm not going to comment on that. You know, obviously, you know, there are many judgments still to be made in that particular case. I think we've got to let it run its course and see what the outcome is. But I'm not going to provide a running commentary either on the legal proceedings or what I think the outcome should be. I'm in no better position than anybody else. But, you know, there are judgments, there are rulings, important rulings still to come in that case. And I think we've got to let them run their course and let, you know, the various courts, both here and in America, come to a final conclusion.
Well, one thing you can give a running commentary on is COVID measures. Boris Johnson was an outlier amongst the nations of the UK in not introducing any more restrictions over Christmas and New Year. You backed, of course, the Plan B measures and helped him get those through Parliament. Do you back him now?
Well, let me just take the Plan B measures. As you say, these were the measures just before Christmas that the Prime Minister needed to get through because he thought they were necessary. Now, he was so weak at that stage, he couldn't get those measures through his own party because there was a huge rebellion. And those measures, the Plan B measures, the restrictions, the protections we've got, are only there because the Labour Party acted in the national interest. We put party considerations to one side and voted because we thought they were necessary. Yeah. Now, as we come out of Christmas, and particularly today, I was listening to your programme earlier, I think all of the focus is on schools. Schools are beginning to go back today. My own children go back tomorrow. And the big question is, why are we facing such a problem yet again on essentially the first day of term? And I think that the answer to schools is that we should have vaccinated more children. Of those who are 12 and over who are eligible for the vaccine, only half of them have been vaccinated. One of the things we said to the Prime Minister before Christmas was use the Christmas break to open some schools to vaccinate the rest of those children. The other thing is ventilation in schools. Now, I've been saying this for a very long time, but if you want to reduce the virus in schools, you need better ventilation. The government has just this weekend come up with 7,000 ventilators. It's about 1 in 4 of what we really need. And their answer is, as I understand it, that children can sit with windows open in the freezing cold with their coats on and a mask on to learn. Well, that is just not ideal.
OK, so your policy would be more... It's more vaccination, more ventilation. That's the Labour Party policy at the moment.
More vaccination, more ventilation. But there's another very, very important component, and that is mass testing in schools. Now, the government says it wants children tested twice a week. I agree with that, but the government hasn't provided the test for that to happen. I would actually like the government to go further, which is to say, if there is an outbreak, if there's a case of COVID in a school, let's not go back to the bubble goes home or the class goes home. We've seen far too much of that disruption. We've lost far too many days in school. I would say have testing, mass testing, so that if there is a child that's positive, those other children that have been in contact with that child get tested. If they're positive, of course, they go home. If they're not positive, they stay at school, because we can't afford to see a repeat of what we saw before, where bubbles and classes all went home for prolonged periods. That's disrupted education for far too long already.
Just finally, I know you're making a speech in Birmingham today about the challenges of the year ahead. What a lot of people say about your leadership is that it's almost too gentle, and that at the moment you're ahead in the polls, and the Conservative Party have scandals with Owen Paterson and garden parties and missed Cobra meetings, and people say, where's the killer instinct? When are you going to come out and fight?
Well, today what I'm setting out in my New Year's speech is the challenge as I see it going into this year, and the opportunity that brings for our country. So I'm setting out my plans for 2022, what we, the Labour Party, say the changes should be for our country that will make it a better place. Building a new Britain coming out of the pandemic. So, you know, for the last year or two, obviously, we have been talking about the pandemic, been concerned about the pandemic a great deal. As we turn the corner into 2022, what I'm setting out today is that vision, that sense of the challenge that we have ahead, but the huge opportunity for our country. I'm also doing something that opposition leaders don't do very often, which is celebrating our country, what it is, and what else we can achieve. And so it'll be really setting the scene for the whole year.
That sounds like a sort of patriotism. Are you going to be doing it in front of a flag?
With Nimrod
look,
playing.
I'm a patriot, and I've done a number of speeches in front of a flag. I profoundly believe in our country, and what I want to do is make it even better than it already is. And I think the Labour Party has a really proud, patriotic history, actually. If you look at, you know, what Attlee did, what Wilson did, what Blair did, they all won power in order to change our country for the better. 3 very important chapters of our history. I want the next Labour government to be the 4th chapter of our history, to make Britain even better than it is. So I'm very proud to be patriotic. I'm very proud to sit or stand in front of the Union Jack. I did it before when I was Director of Public Prosecutions, representing the United Kingdom. It's a very proud thing to do.
Well, I'm sure that will appeal to a lot of people. It's just very interesting, of course, because government ministers came in for a bit of a ribbing for constantly appearing in front of the flag. And I just wonder whether, you know, you've decided to wrap yourself in it as a response to that.
No, it's not a response. I don't respond to what government ministers do. I think that's a bad starting point. It is a representation that I want to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I'm very proud to sit or stand in front of the of our flag, our Union Jack. But as I say, this is not a first for me. When I was Director of Public Prosecutions 10 years ago, I attended international meetings representing the United Kingdom. I sat in front of our flag, and I did so very proudly. I hope to do so as Prime Minister of this country. So for me, it's very straightforward. I want a Labour government. I want to be Prime Minister because I believe in our country. I think we're a fantastic country. I think we can be even better. And what I am setting out this morning is how I see that we can shape that in the coming years as we come out of the pandemic and as how we build a new Britain fit for the 21st century.
Thank you. It's quite an American approach, standing in front of the flag regularly, isn't it? That's Keir Starmer in Birmingham. Thank you very much for joining us.